Chelsea fans, welcome back to Talking Chelsea. Welcome back to your Chelsea news. Chelsea dropped 2 points in a 2-2 draw against Brentford last night in the Premier League, and we're going to go over Enzo Maresca's post-match press conference. Not only that, but Chelsea want to secure 2 massive free transfers. Now, of course, I'll give my own thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported, but more importantly, I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. Before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content. We are on the road to 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. You can also use the hype button, which is a new YouTube feature which helps push these videos out to a bigger audience. Kicking things off on BBC Match of the Day, Enzo Maresca said it's a shame to concede late, but it happens. Probably we could manage that moment of the game better, but in the end we concede and lose 2 points. We try and win every game, but we know that we won't win every game. It's a shame because we conceded so late. Sky Sports also reported what Enzo Maresca said on the game, and he said, "We knew that it was a tough game. The first half we struggled to find solutions in the space because they were defending very good. I think the second half we were much better. It's a shame because we conceded in the 93rd and 94th minutes and we could have managed better at that moment." He goes on to talk about if the goals were avoidable. He says, "You have to be able to avoid transitions and set pieces. They scored from transitions and set pieces. It's something we deal with quite well, but during the game, but in the end we concede and it's a shame." He goes on to say, "I think we were much better. I think we deserve to win the game second half, but it's a shame we lost 2 points." Bobby Vincent then reported what Enzo Maresca said on the draw, and he said, "For sure, we were much better in the second half. For different reasons, we struggled in the first half. We could have scored 1 or 2 more." He continues to talk about the team selection. He says, "We planned 45 minutes for Wes because he's gone a long time out. We planned not all of the game for Jorel because he needs time to adapt. Facundo is not physically 100%. We needed to manage different solutions. João Pedro was not 100%, but he did the effort to play most of the game." Now, there's a lot to break down here because I kind of agree with Maresca in terms of in the second half we did play a lot better, but it's because we put on so many first teamers, and that team selection took a lot of us by surprise. Playing Wesley Fofana as a right back made me think, oh, okay, we're going to invert Hato, but I didn't know that Hato was going to be playing that role, and maybe this wasn't the right type of game to start Hato. I think it's good that Cucurella got some rest, even if it was for sort of 45 minutes, because he did play a lot of minutes in international games, and we have Bayern Munich in a few days. However, he just wasn't ready. Our entire left-hand side, you could see, just wasn't up to the standard that we needed them to be, and maybe Brentford away wasn't the game to trial them out. Maybe a home game. I know we've got 4 away games in a row, but again, we're talking in hindsight. But Wesley Fofana as a right back, I know obviously if Hato does invert, he becomes that right-sided centre-back, and yes, he can play that role very well, but at right back, I just thought he was very lethargic, he was very lazy in his tracking. He played okay, but you could definitely see he wasn't up to speed. And then when it comes to Jorel Hato, there's no hate on him. We want to see him get minutes. He's been brought in as rotation for Cucurella, but you could just quite clearly see that he wasn't up to standard. And that's fair enough. He's a young player that's come across the Premier League, needs time to adapt. Gittins, a lot of Chelsea fans have been getting on his back. Getting on Gittins' back. It's been 4 games. Now, look, I'm going to be brutally honest and also fair. The honest part of me is he's not good enough to be starting for Chelsea right now because he's just not. Like, you look at the games he's playing, the minutes he's playing, he is very clearly not ready. However, it has only been 4 games. He has to adapt to this new league. We know what he's been brought in for, and it seems like he's trying too hard or he's not fully worked out what he's meant to be doing in this system. Because, look, if he goes high and wide and tries to stretch the play and then gets really technical on the byline and tries to beat a man, great. If he comes inside and makes those runs inside, amazing. But he seems very indecisive. He kind of is sitting in between the two, and I feel like a lot of the players couldn't play down that left-hand side. There was a lack of urgency from Hato getting forward because he's not so used to the system and he needs to adapt. From Gittins, who clearly doesn't really know his actual position within this system, through and through, if that makes sense, instinctively, where you've got the likes of Pedro Neto who could play left or right, who knows the system because he's been bedded in, right? So it's a very strange team selection. When it comes to Facundo Buonanotte, I actually think he had a pretty decent first half. Again, surprised he was in the selection, but also not because of the rotation of players that Maresca was going for. And yes, I would agree with Maresca. He's not physically 100% up for it. You can see him get knocked off the ball quite easily. But his passage of play and his link-up play, I was very impressed with. And I'm only saying that because I've not seen Buonanotte play. I'm going to be brutally honest. It's a fresh canvas for me, and I didn't really know what to be expecting. I kind of got KDH vibes, where he's there to do a job, and he does that well, but he's clearly not ready as well. And again, it's Enzo Maresca rotating players and a bit of a bizarre team selection, if I'm being honest, in that first half. The second half, when you brought on the likes of Reece James, Cucurella, Cole Palmer, Tyreek George, who has a bit more experience in the sort of positions he's playing, he brought him on as a 9. João Pedro clearly wasn't getting the service that he needs to be an effective player. He definitely plays better as a 10, but can play the role as a 9, right? And we know that because of how well he's been playing. He even got himself an assist last night, so that's another GA 4 games he's played. He's on fire in that sense. But you could see that he wasn't 100% sharp and he wasn't getting the service. He was dropping so deep to pick up the ball just to get involved in play. And I kept saying during the watch along over on TikTok, I didn't have the bandwidth to do a multi-stream. So I apologise. Currently, my house is being run off of a 5G SIM card. I'm waiting for my internet to be installed, hence why the uploads are still coming up, but they're just a little bit sporadic in terms of not a set time as they usually are, so I do apologise. Anyway, I was saying during the TikTok watch along that because Pedro was dropping so deep, there was no one filling any space. So it just become null and void, essentially. And Brentford, look, they sat back. They were playing a 5 at the back, sometimes 6 when they were really sitting deep, and they knew what they were doing, and they hit us on the transitions, hit us on the counters. And it's absolute deja vu from the Fulham game. The only difference is we were saved by VAR in that Fulham game with the Trevor Chalobah foul, and we weren't against Brentford. When you leave Tosin one-on-one on the break, he's not the player you want to be leaving there. He hasn't got the recovery speed that you want from a centre-back. That should be someone like Trevor Chalobah. That should be someone like Fofana when he wants to track back. Because when you watch that goal and a breakdown of it, Fofana's jogging back. He's not chasing his man. There's no urgency there. And again, he's been out for a long time. You can clearly see he's rusty. And then you can't expect anything else from the players when the setup was a case of Fofana's going forward, Hato's going forward, Chalobah's going forward, you're leaving Tosin isolated. And there were times where, we know that the Maresca system is to have 2 centre-backs that stay back and have your wing-back, well, not wing-backs, but your full-backs, either inverting or overlapping or whatever. Sometimes that one of those, usually the left side with Levi Colwill, will push up and break the lines, but then you have someone that, comes back and there's always 2 defenders back. But time and time again, on the transition, on the counter, we left Tosin isolated. Now, I love Tosin, but he's not the centre-back to be isolating on a 1v1, in my opinion. He just doesn't have the recovery speed. So there's a lot to break down, really. In all honesty, I don't think Chelsea were good enough in that first half. And yes, we were better in the second half when you brought the likes of Cole Palmer on, who dragged us back into the game with that fantastic finish. We did play better from sort of when he came on. Instant impact, which you kind of expect because Cole Palmer is a game-changing player. Right, and we shouldn't have to rely on him so much. We know this, and there have been times this season, like the West Ham game, where we've actually performed better without him, and it's purely because he was injured in the pre-match warm-up, not a selection choice, right? So we can show that we can do it. Now, West Ham probably isn't the best data sample because they're playing so poorly this season, but it just showcased that we can go forward well. If we can actually have a bit more creativity and break down low blocks, because that's the one thing that really stuck out yesterday, especially in that first half. A heavily rotated squad that, a number of players that hadn't played together very long, so they didn't gel very well. Lack of urgency. Happy to be on possession, which is what Maresca usually likes, and the playing out from the back, which was shaky at times. But, we got the job done, essentially, in terms of what Maresca would have wanted. We just weren't good enough. We just weren't good enough, and it was too much. Too much of a difference. Like I said, the second half we played a lot better, and especially when Palmer pulled us back into the game, we played a lot better from the 55th minute onwards. But there's more that Enzo Maresca has said about this game that I want to kind of break down, and I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on the team selection. And do you agree with what Maresca is saying, that we were the better team in the second half? I felt like we did step up, but I feel like it was kind of normal when you put more of the first teamers in, that we are going to elevate and perform a bit better. And we were robbed of a Caicedo screamer, because Caicedo only scores bangers, and what a goal that he scored. It was unreal. What a strike. Bobby Vincent then reported what Enzo Maresca said on long throw-ins. He said, during the game, we tried to deal with it, knowing that they are so dangerous. They can arrive in the 6-yard box so easily. Maresca was then asked, did Chelsea do enough to win? He said, I think so, yes. We scored twice in the second half. Cole chance, Pedro chance. We did enough, but we lost 2 points in the last minutes. Maresca then talks about what can be improved on. He said, from the moment we scored the second one, we need to manage better. We need to pass, slow down. This is something we need to work on. Now, I partly agree with what Enzo Maresca said. I feel like Chelsea should have been winning that type of game. Historically, Chelsea and Brentford games, we struggled to get over the line. Historically, we just do. So we knew it was coming into a tough team. Now, when you look at the summer window, Brentford have had sort of like, their manager ripped away, some key players ripped away, but they recruit well. They defend well. They've not really changed their style of play. The one thing they have added is long throws. And Thomas Tuchel said this in the international break. Long throws are back. They're in trend. They're back again. And we really struggled. The most deflating thing about us dropping the points last night was the fact it was in the manner that we did it. It was injury time, last few kicks of the game. It was from a long throw. And when you look at how we defensively set up, how they still won the header and the flick on to go to the back stick, I don't understand. People are getting on Garnacho for not tracking his man. I hear it. I really do. I think Garnacho was very good when he came on. He only had 11 minutes, but he's also, technically because of FPL, in that sort of regard, he would have had an assist for the Caicedo goal. He had a couple of really good cutbacks that created a bit of danger for us to capitalise on. He got a bit fortunate. It was kind of, cleared out to Caicedo, but we had that spare man because of his attack, and Caicedo absolutely banged one into the back of the net, and it was unbelievable. So the defensive actions, again, Maresca said he's not 100% fully fit. So it just makes you question. Maresca had two right backs and Cucurella. So 3 fullbacks on the bench. Now, I know he wanted to give rest to Cucurella and Reece James specifically because they played a lot of international minutes. You had Malo Gusto there. If you wanted to give Wesley Fofana minutes, you could have played him as a centre-back for the first half or even the second half, but used Malo Gusto, who is more of a natural right-back. In my opinion, anyway. That's what it confuses me, because when we talk about Enzo Maresca's tactics and the rotation, we understand what he tries to do to a degree. He always surprises us every now and then with a selection like he did last night. Now, I counted it, and there was 8 first-teamers in that starting 11. So you think, okay, it's relatively strong, but Fofana right back's a bit questionable. Buonanotte is, coming in to do a job. How's he going to do? Hato, good for him to see minutes. How's he going to adjust? But then when you partner Hato with Gittins, like I said, the entire left-hand side was just not up to scratch. It baffles me, and I think it baffles a lot of you guys too with his selections because of who we have to utilise on the bench. So I feel like Chelsea did enough to win because we went 2-1 up, and we should have managed the game better. When you look at how we conceded the throw-in that we then conceded the equaliser from, it was pretty lazy from us, I'm not going to lie. However, they were doing long throws all game, and Sanchez, for the most part, was coming out and claiming those. He was doing very well. I think Sanchez had a very good game, made some very incredible saves to keep us in the game. And I don't think that any of the goals were actually his fault. And I think that his distribution wasn't amazing, but it was better than what we have seen in a while. I'm not saying he had a perfect game, because he clearly didn't. Very shaky at the back still. But he was doing what he could. He was being caught in no man's land for that equaliser, because we had the physicality and the height to defend that throw-in. And it still got through. So it's just confusing. It's confusing and disappointing to be losing to a long throw. But the game's the game. If it works, it works. It's as simple as that. And when it comes to that and the team selection in the first half, I just feel like Maresca probably, and again, this is hindsight talking, he could have picked a stronger 11 to start the game to then get the lead, then make the changes and rest the players, and then we can sit back on the lead. But it seems like Chelsea can only start playing once we concede. And it's a very annoying trait to witness across the last season or so. When we're struggling to get into a game, we have to concede, and then we get the rocket up our bum. And it's just frustrating. But I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you think Chelsea did enough to win the game? Or if we did win the game, do you think it would have been another lucky escape? Bobby Vincent then asked Enzo Maresca, was he thinking about the Bayern pre-match? And he says, João Pedro asked me before the game that he was not 100%. If I was thinking about the Bayern Munich game, João would be on the bench. When you have so many games, you have to plan with different options. Our focus was on tonight. If this season we played Champions League, it's because we did well in the Champions League. Now, this is very, very interesting, because a lot of my thesis and a lot of other people's thesis was heavy rotation, got Bayern Munich in a few days. And I even said that previously in this video. But apparently not, according to Enzo Maresca. Apparently it is not. He wasn't thinking about Bayern Munich midweek. A draw isn't the end of the world. A point is a point. It just feels very deflating because of how we dropped the 2 points, coming back from losing to being in a winning position and losing at the last kick. It is very deflating. It feels like a loss more than a draw, right? And for Brentford, it will feel like a win. They played well for large spells, kept us out, and then they go and equalise in injury time. Now, if Enzo Maresca wasn't thinking about Bayern Munich, then that goes back to his team selection to start the game, because then you go, okay, well, if you're not having sort of one eye on Wednesday's game, then why are you doing such a heavy rotation? This isn't the Conference League. This is the Premier League. You can't underestimate your opponents. Now, yes, Brentford might get relegated. They might be in the lower half of the table. They might have a very good season because of all the changes and dynamics they've had over the summer. But of course, historically, we don't play well against them. They're a very physical side. They outmuscled us a lot of the time on the pitch, and they were beating us with Route 1 and transition football. And fair enough, that's how a lot of teams are going to play against us. That's how a lot of teams are going to play against us, and we need solutions for that. But if you're not keeping an eye on the Bayern Munich game, then yeah, we have to question your selection. I don't know whether that's an excuse on Maresca's part, but then why have you got the likes of Reece James, Cucurella and Malo Gusto on the bench, and you're trying to shoehorn in all these other players? Why are you giving Hato and Gittins, the entire left-hand side, more minutes in a game where, yes, back from international break, we're usually pretty sluggish, but they haven't played that well together. They haven't played a lot together, if ever, on the pitch. It's just a big ask, in my opinion. We lacked that urgency down the left-hand side, and Brentford knew that, and they took advantage of that. Cucurella drives that in urgency on the left-hand side massively. But I don't know. This just baffles me when he says, okay, I'm not keeping an eye on the Bayern Munich game. Because then you just look at the squad selection and you go, what was the plan then? Because if you had said, yes, we have one eye on the Munich game, you kind of go, all right, fair enough. I kind of understand a lot of your selections for that reason. Fair. If you want to prioritise the Champions League, in terms of the games in quick succession and, players come back from international duty, fair enough. We still got a draw. It's not the end of the world. And I want to reiterate that. I'm not, disappointed in terms of we should have got 3. We've lost. No, we've got a point on the board. We're still unbeaten for the season. It's just deflating that we've dropped the 2 points in the manner that we have. So this just really confused me about not having an eye on Bayern Munich match. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you think this is a bit of a cover-up from Enzo Maresca? Do you feel like he was thinking on the Bayern Munich game? I personally feel like he must have, right? With his selection. I know he was very limited for some of the South American players on international duty, etc. And obviously he wants to manage players like Reece James and Cucurella and whatnot so they don't burn out. But I don't know. Enzo wasn't used for international duty. I think he had a fairly good game last night as well, which is good to see. It's a shame that obviously it was under the guise of conceding in injury time and it being 2 points dropped. But I feel like he did have a good game. Neto I thought was outstanding as well. But if he's not keeping an eye on the Bayern Munich game, then that means we have to question his selection, really. So let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Bobby Vincent then asked Enzo Maresca on why Guiu was not in the squad. And he says, Marc is a striker. We know him from last year. But in this moment, one of them was out from the squad. I wanted to give Ty a bit more confidence. Against Fulham, he did well. Tonight, he was okay. The season is so long. I have a bit of a qualm with this. Because we recalled Guiu. And I'm not saying you have to use him every single game. But after hearing the post-match, and I'm trying to understand how Maresca's working before the game, João Pedro said he wasn't 100%. So you were mindful of that. You wanted to bring him off, rotate him. You wanted to give Ty some more confidence. Okay, fair enough. Figure out a way of shoehorning him in. Because if João Pedro isn't 100% and you have the likes of Marc Guiu who's fit and ready to go, and we've been recalled to be that backup striker while Delap is injured, the fact that he's not in a squad genuinely baffles me. Why? Like, I know someone has to get left out. Cool. Well, if you're not planning on using someone like Malo Gusto or Reece James, take him out the squad. I mean, maybe not Reece James because we massively needed him when we brought him on and he was amazing, right? But what I'm saying is you had 3 fullbacks on the bench. You had all these other players on the bench that your intention wasn't to, maybe give minutes to if possible, but you could have used Guiu either from the start and then brought João on or vice versa, and it would have been not like for likes of different profiles, but you would have had an actual number 9 playing number 9, because when you brought Tyreek George on as a 9, within 10 minutes you pushed him out to the left. So I don't know. I know you want to give Ty his confidence, and I think that he was a lot more aggressive last night, which is really nice to see. And the season is long, he's right. I don't know, it just baffles me. Leaving Marc Guiu out the squad completely when you're then saying that João Pedro wasn't 100%, it's just a bit confusing. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think Marc Guiu should have played last night? Would you have involved him in the squad? Or do you think Maresca was right to leave him out of the squad completely? Bobby Vincent then asked Enzo Maresca on Brentford's equaliser, was it offside? And Enzo said, I didn't watch it back. I asked in the changing rooms why there was VAR, but I didn't watch back, to be honest. I don't know. Now, me personally, we've been very lucky with VAR decisions going our way this season. I didn't see too much of an issue with that long throw-in. There were question marks over, being offside or not. I've always thought you can't be offside from a throw-in. It's as simple as that. But apparently there was from the knock-on or whatever. It was checked at VAR very briefly, but the goal was given. Cool, it is what it is. It's our fault for not being able to clear the problem. We conceded the throw and we conceded from it. That's on us. However, this morning, Foot Offsides has reported the first offside error by VAR in the 25-26 Premier League season. It's... Okay, right, let's look at this. Katara, I think that's how you pronounce it, who was standing in an offside position at the moment of the touch by Ayer, attempted to play the ball, having an impact on Reece James. This is offside offence under Law 11. Now, when you look at these pictures, feel free to go check out the X accounts. You can, maximise these images. I kind of see what they're saying, and look, by the letter of the law, it's probably offside, right? Because that's how they're breaking it down. Cool. Factually, it was, and it wasn't given. If I'm being honest, we are clutching at straws. We are trying to split hairs here because we've been very, very fortunate in the previous games to have VAR go our way. In my opinion, this is just karma. We just have to learn how to deal with it. We've dropped points. We didn't manage the game well enough after taking the lead. Simple as that. We didn't start the game well enough in that first 45. We got punished for it. Hit on the transition. Second half, we stepped up, bringing more first teamers in. We had Palmer, who dragged us back in the game. Caicedo, screamer. We didn't manage the game enough to get the 3 points. And that's all it is at the end of the day. This isn't a negative thing. This isn't a positive thing. There are definitely a few positives to take from it. Palmer obviously having an instant impact, which is good to see. Garnacho having a good 11-minute debut, showing some really good signs attacking-wise. But we just didn't manage the game. And like I said, look, a draw isn't the worst thing in the world. I would, if you'd have said at the end of the first half, you take a draw, I'd say yeah, because of how poorly we were playing in that first half. I'd have taken a draw all day long because we didn't even look like scoring. The lack of creativity and creating chances. And then obviously in the second half, we dragged ourselves back in it. We then start playing better. We then take the lead. It's just disappointing to concede in the final minutes in the way that we did. But I'd still take a point, A point's a point. It's better than nothing. The sort of, emotional side of it is, if we would have kept the 3 points, we'd have gone top. And that would have been amazing. But we're not. It is what it is. The season is very, very long. But I'm very curious to know what you guys think regarding this offside error by VAR. Do you think that the second or the equaliser was offside? Or are you just saying the game's the game, it is what it is? We were lucky in previous games, so karma has come full circle. Sky Sports had reported what Moises Caicedo said about the game, and he says, Brentford played their football using long throws into the box, and it's difficult sometimes. We tried to do our best, but this sometimes happens. He goes on to say it was hard to fight back into the game, but the reaction of the team was good. We are happy with the fight back, but not the result. And this is exactly sums up what I'm thinking as well. Look, it wasn't the best of performances, but we did claw ourselves back in the game. We then took the lead, and it's just disappointing the way that we ended the game, dropping the 2 points. But the way that we came back from being 1-0 down, I'm all for. I think that's very, very good characteristics to have. Yes, there was a lot of changes. Maresca may not have got the starting 11 right. The way that the team were playing, very lethargic. Happy in possession, had loads of possession, but Brentford were happy for us to have it. We had no creativity. We struggled breaking down a low block again, which is something that's been Chelsea's problem for a long time. However, fight back of the team was great. You can see how much it meant to everyone when Caicedo scored that banger. It's just a shame that we threw the game away. Well, I say threw the game away, but we dropped the 2 points, right? Conceding that, equalising the way that we did. And long throws, a lot of people were complaining that Pep has ruined football with this tippy-tappy football, and I get it, right? I was starting to lean that way. It's like everyone plays the same system. They want to be like Pep, and I get it. It can be very boring to watch at times. Same with Maresca ball. It can be very boring to watch at times. I quite enjoy the football of it in terms of trying to break down what they're trying to do. Sometimes it is a bit monotonous. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and say it's perfect because it's clearly not. But the fact that long balls are coming back in, long throws are coming back in, maybe there's going to be a paradigm shift and it's going to start balancing out, which means that these teams on the lower end of the Premier League are going to start racking up more points by resorting back to old school Barclays Premier League, or Premiership, sorry. Barclays football, the long throws, the long balls. If they work, the game is the game. If they work and they get you points, you do them. But I do agree with what Caicedo has said about the game. I'm happy that we fought back and we did eventually go ahead. But the result, not happy with at all. I think it's perfectly summed up in many, many words. So let me know your thoughts and opinions overall on the Chelsea-Brentford game. Do you think a draw was a fair result? I personally think it was a fair result because I don't think we did enough to win across the 90 minutes for sure. And I think Brentford actually did very well in terms of keeping us at bay and taking their chances when they had them. But I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on the overall. Is the draw the worst thing in the world to you? Should there be 3 points? Or does it feel like a loss? Let me know your thoughts. And TBR Football and other sources have reported that Chelsea are looking to sign Marc Guiu and Mike Maignan on free transfers next summer. Now, I just wanted to speak about this briefly and have a conversation with you guys because I think Chelsea are well within their rights and capability to go after these players on a free transfer. pre-contractual agreements like we did with Amiga a few days ago, where you can basically get ahead of the curve. Marc Guiu's going on a free next summer. He didn't get his move to Liverpool in the summer, and it looked very nailed on that that's what he was going to do. Mike Maignan, we refused to pay the extra money, and I believe now that the plan is just to let him run his contract down and then go get him on a free. My only concern is Marc Guiu will be going Liverpool. If he comes to Chelsea, it would be a miracle because of how nailed on that Liverpool move is, and how it was, for the summer, and they just couldn't get it over the line during the window. Mike Maignan, on the other hand, I think could happen. I still think that a lot of teams are going to come in for someone like Mike Maignan because he's a fantastic keeper, a leader, someone who can play out from the back, someone who's a good shot stopper, someone who's been captain, international #1, etc. A lot of teams are going to come in for him. The difference being is he basically agreed personal terms with Chelsea, and we just won't pay that extra money, and Milan were being a bit stubborn in terms of what they wanted to receive from him. So I feel like we are sort of in the pole position to secure someone like Mike Maignan. But then it poses another question of what the pathway is for Mike Penders. Because at the moment, you've got Sanchez, Jorgensen, and Penders. Penders has gone on loan. So you've got Jorgensen, Sanchez, and I think it's Selena that's still there. Does that mean if you go get someone like Mike Maignan, you then sell Robert Sanchez, or you sell Jorgensen and bring Mike in and have Mike and Sanchez fight for that #1 spot? Or you buy Mike as a statement to say he's our #1 and the other two, we're not really fussed about it? I don't really know, because you're not going to bring in someone like Mike Maignan on a free and just have him as a backup keeper. He wouldn't want to sign up to that. And I would be very, very excited if Chelsea got someone like Mike Maignan, because of the way he would be a massive upgrade on Sanchez. Shot stopping, very good. Playing out from the back, very good. And like I said, leader, experience, won trophies. I do want to give Sanchez his credit, though. I think he made some incredible saves yesterday, and I think he has improved over the period of like 4 or 5 months. Like I've said, I'm not his biggest fan, but I will always criticise and I'll always be fair and give flowers when it's due as well. So I don't think it's much of a need right now, as a lot of fans still think we need a world-class keeper, because honestly, I think Sanchez is doing enough. I think at the moment he's doing enough, and I think the problems are further up in the pitch than it is specifically with him. The mistakes have dried up. He's not made any massive mistakes that have led to goals in a while now. He's making some saves to keep us in the games, to keep us up in the lead, or to keep things at 0-0 for long periods of the game. Yes, he still concedes. He conceded 2 yesterday, but I don't see him at fault for either of those goals, if I'm being brutally honest. I feel like it was a team thing that kind of let him down, and he's obviously going to get the blame because he's the last line of defence. However, Mike Maignan, in my opinion, would be a massive upgrade. Marc Guiu would be huge for us. Starting next season with the likes of Colwell, Guiu, having Trevor Chalobah, Tosin, it would really strengthen our back line. But I just can't see him going to Chelsea over Liverpool, if I'm being brutally honest, especially on a free transfer, because then it just comes down to wages, right? The player gets a sign-on fee, so whoever's going to offer a higher sign-on fee and wages. And if it's Chelsea, Liverpool going for wages, and the way that we've got our new wage structure, in my opinion, he would just go straight to Liverpool. But again, with a free transfer, it probably frees up a lot more weekly wages that we could offer, because it all balances out over a contract period. I don't really know. I'm not an accountant. But that's typically how it works. Like Tosin was paid a lot more money a week than what we would offer someone of his age on a contract, because he was a free transfer. So it could work out in our favour. I don't really know. But I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions. Do you think Chelsea have a chance to sign Marc Guiu and Mike Maignan on a free transfer? Maybe get some pre-contractual agreements done in January for next summer, or even bring them in January. Well, no, the contract will run out at the end of the year. So yeah, pre-contractual for next summer. Or do you think that Mike Maignan would turn us down and Marc Guiu is going to Liverpool? I'm very curious to know your thoughts. And that's the latest Chelsea news. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported down below in the comment section. I love having a conversation with you guys. And if you have watched this video all the way to the end, firstly, you're a real one, and I mean that. You're a real one. But secondly, there'll be a thumbnail appears on the screen. So if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content, make sure you click that thumbnail, because you'll enjoy that video too.